I think, I can't remember if it was when my sister was still pregnant or right after she had the baby. She's chilling out watching Netflix, and she sends me a picture of a screenshot of a Marvel movie, and she's like, look what I'm watching. And I'm like, wait, what is that? And I'm trying to figure out what image it is, because it was kind of an obscure... It was right from the opening of Civil War, like when Bucky's still frozen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Taking a shot like that out of context, I'm like, what the hell are you watching? And then she sent me another picture that was very clearly Captain America Civil War, and I was like, oh, okay, Civil War, nice. Did you see all the other stuff? No. I'm like, wait, no, stop the movie right now. You're not going to get it. It doesn't hold that emotional weight if you don't watch the other one. So
she's going into like chapter like 14 or 15 just cold.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, did you watch any of the other ones? Well, I think I watched some of them. I vaguely remember them. It's like, no. We have to correct this. It is now my mission to have you watch these correctly. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bright Guy and Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is Andy Stoles.
What's up, podcast people?
And Josh George.
Hello, everybody. Good to be back.
So we are trying to play a bit of catch-up with this episode. It's been a long time coming. We are finally going to talk about Stranger Things Season 2. I know I think I finished it the weekend this came out, so I had to wait a little bit for other people to catch up before. I think Bradley and I were the only two that I think finished it that weekend, at least from the group that does the podcast, at least that I had talked to. It seemed like everybody else either hadn't started or hadn't finished it yet, so we were trying to put this in the back pocket at the time. And then, of course, we kept getting distracted with other stuff to talk about, so this kept getting pushed back. So finally, we've rounded out the guest list to include a few more people that have caught up and finished the show. So we're only roughly a month and a half late talking about the show. We were sort of talking before we started recording. Josh, how long ago did you finish season 2?
The first weekend of November, I crunched out the last 5 episodes. Actually, while I was on an Amtrak train going to Philadelphia.
Okay, so you're about a month removed. Andy, when did you finish season 2?
I watched the entirety of it over Thanksgiving weekend.
Was it a one-day binge, or was it a few days?
Yeah, it was a few days.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I think it took me probably 3 days. I think I started real hard Friday night, and I finished finally Sunday night, the weekend it started. And I don't even know if I might have watched only one episode Sunday, so it was a lot on Friday and Sunday, or one episode Saturday of that weekend, sorry. So I think I did 5 Friday night with a friend, and then Sunday finished it. But yeah, it's been I don't know, a month and a half for me, because it was the end of October when it came out. So yeah, it's been a while. So I'm a little rusty on some of these details. These guys might have to help me flesh this out a little bit more if I'm a little rusty.
Never fear, Brian.
That's what I get you guys along for, to carry me. So we're going to treat this, I think, sort of like we treat most of our movie reviews. We'll try to talk generally about this series, about the second season, what we thought, before going into spoilers. So just to start it generally, between the two of you guys, what are some of your overall impressions of season 2?
After you, sir.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Was unsure if I was going to be as emotionally involved in season 2 as I was in season 1. But I definitely was. I think it actually rivaled season 1.
Yeah.
So that's definitely good. They upped the stakes, which I didn't think was possible after watching season 1.
Yeah.
But they definitely did. I thought all the actors, especially the young actors, did a very good job again.
Yeah. They picked a good crew for that show.
Yeah, and it's tough to have shows grow while the actors are growing as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
good point.
So I mean, it could still go sour, I guess, in season 3, but so far season 2 is still pretty good.
I think just speaking to the ages of the kids, I thought that was something I read that like next season they're expecting to maybe do some sort of a time jump between season 2 and season 3, like maybe a year or two, just because the kid actors are growing.
They would have to, yeah.
So I don't know how big of a time jump it will be, but I think that's the plan going forward.
I enjoyed the introduction of the new characters.
Yeah, they had a.
Yeah.
We'll talk generally about some of those guys before we get into the specifics. But yeah, there was a lot of new guys that I really, really enjoyed in this cast.
Right.
And everybody overall, like especially the new people, really melded in with the rest of what was happening, without it seeming forced, without it seeming like, okay, we're gonna jam new characters in because that's what you need to do to make things continue to seem interesting, because that's obviously like we're going for, somewhat realism here, and that's what would happen in real life. You meet new people, different things happen in your life. But it didn't seem like they were trying to, like Cousin Oliver it and just fit something in there just for the sake of it. Like everybody felt like they created a place for them. They weren't just there. It felt good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm on the same page as Andy. I think this definitely rivaled season 1. I'm still unsure which season I like better. I don't know if I can make a ruling because they're so damn close.
Yeah, it's tough to call, right?
But yeah, the stakes were higher. Everything was, bigger, badder this time around. If you like season 1, you've already finished season 2, I'm sure by now. There's no reason to wait to watch this.
Right.
But if for some reason you're late to the party and you watch season 1 and are hesitant of season 2 for whatever reason, definitely watch season 2 because it's awesome too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say the thing that I thought that they were really successful with is they found a way to make you just as engaged and just as taken with the characters, just as taken with the conflict and the plot and like what the potential resolution was going to be and what the costs to reach that resolution needed to be. I don't know about you guys, like when you discovered the first season, I remember seeing advertisements for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks just like on Netflix's website when I would sign in, like, new original programming releasing June whatever,
right?
This Stranger Things show. I just watched the first episode on a whim, like a week after it was put online, and some Facebook friends had watched a few episodes and were saying, "Oh, this is really cool. Everyone, hey, give it a chance. This is really different." And that was I think it was such a sleeper hit for us all. Like it wasn't like another like Marvel show coming, right?
Right.
It was just original programming that they had made, and maybe they had done some test audiences and maybe they got some good feedback, but I'd be very surprised if they realized how hard and how well this was going to hit.
Yeah, it was definitely like lightning how quickly like word of mouth spread this show so quickly.
Yeah.
Because I don't even remember seeing ads. I remember it being around San Diego Comic-Con weekend, and I don't know how long before that weekend it premiered on Netflix.
I'd say because San Diego's like mid-July, right?
Yeah, somewhere usually around there.
I'd say maybe 3 weeks to a month at the absolute most.
Okay, so I was maybe a little bit later to the party there, but I remember Zach Levi always does this thing, or at least before last year, he would do it he did it a couple years in a row, but he had his own like offshoot of Comic-Con called Nerd HQ, where he would have panels and discussions with celebrity guests that come on, and they would stream all that live on the internet. So if you weren't there, you could just watch the panels with these celebrities and watch them field questions and stuff. He hosts the event, and I was watching a lot of those that weekend, and pretty much every time before a celebrity guest came out, or even during discussions with celebrity guests, he was hyping that show so hard. Like, I guess he had finished it and just wanted people to know it's out there and it's really awesome. And the fact that he kept saying it over and over again, guys, watch Stranger Things. I finally just started researching a little bit. I think I started hearing a little bit more on social media at that time about it, and finally just decided to check it out and was instantly hooked. And then that's when I had to tell everybody that I knew, like, if you haven't watched this, you need to fucking watch this right now.
Yeah, and that was the thing, like you said, sort of like lightning in a bottle as well with it, and the fact that I think they did a great job at, just speaking for myself at least, I mean, they kept me just as engaged, they kept me just as curious and interested and just wanting to know what's going to happen in the next scene, what's going to happen in the next episode. They very easily could have, hit a big pothole in trying to write the next chapter.
Yeah.
And like totally lost people.
And that's part of the reason I think Netflix maybe works as well as they do, because I don't think since they're not beholden to, okay, the TV season is over in May, we need something ready for the fall, so get stuff ready for September. You have, 3 or 4 months to get a story arc ready for the season. They let these guys take the time to craft a story and just, because it took, what, a year and a half-ish, probably?
Almost. I mean, it was about 16 months.
Okay. Yeah, so that's obviously more time they would have gotten in a traditional TV schedule to be able to craft the story. And then it basically plays out like an 8 or 9 hour movie. And I think the show's a lot better for it.
Yeah, very much.
Testament to these guys just to be able to craft a story that, like, I really like stories that build like that. Like, sometimes it runs the risk of taking a slow start and then not having people engaged, but I don't know how to describe it, but they craft the story so well enough that you're still engaged in those first couple episodes, even though it doesn't really feel like a lot is happening. It's a lot of setup. And then by the time you get to the middle, and the end is always just spectacular, whatever they try to do. But there's so much along the way that just hooks you and keeps you going, and it constantly builds to those last couple episodes. I think it was late Sunday night when I finished, but I was like, I had 2 episodes left. It was like nearing 1:00 in the morning. I had to work the next day, and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch one, and then I'll get the other one later. And I finished the second to last one. I was like, nope, I can't.
Crap.
Has to.
You were lying to yourself.
Yeah, I thought I'd be the stronger man for it, but nope, I was just dead tired the next day and sucked it up. All right, so let's try to talk generally about some of these new characters that joined the cast. So I'll just speed fire through the 5 that I picked out that were new to the cast. We have Sean Astin's Bob, Sadie Sink, I think is her name, for Max. Dacre Montgomery, the Red Ranger himself, was Billy.
Yep.
Paul Reiser joins as Dr. Sam Owens, and I'm not going to say this is a spoiler, I guess, because she's in the opening of the freaking show. I don't even know how to say her name. Linnea Berthelsen? I probably butchered her name real bad, but she's Callie. Maybe we won't talk about her significance yet. We could talk about that in spoilers. But any one of those 5 that you guys want to touch on?
I really enjoyed Sean Astin and Paul Reiser.
Yes.
I haven't seen Paul Reiser regularly in something probably since, like the Mad About You days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I forgot how much he's kind of awesome.
Yeah. He's just real casual about everything. Like, he plays it so well.
I think he's one of those actors that I kind of forgot. Like, I don't think he gets enough credit for how smooth he's able to be and how just, like, effortless and natural he's able to be.
And it was like such a contrast to me after going from like Dr. Brenner's bedside manner to then Paul Reiser's bedside manner, and you're like, this dude, I like this guy already.
Yeah, I thought he fit real well, and at first I thought that Sean Astin's character Bob was like, I felt at first, like the maybe first 2 episodes, I was like, he kind of feels awkward among everybody else. But as the show went on, I was like, oh, this is his place. Like, this is where he fits in. This is the space that he, occupies. And,
well, even the awkwardness I feel like it was sort of intentional. Like, with him just trying to fit in as part of the family and get used to that dynamic, like, I feel like his character was awkward.
Yeah. I mean, I mean it in a different way, but it was like, it didn't feel like it gelled well at first. But then, like, maybe, like I said, yeah, in retrospect, by the end, maybe that was part of it. Maybe it was supposed to seem like he was always like 1 degree, 1/2 degree removed.
Right. Okay. Anything for Max? That was the little redhead girl that they.
Mad Max.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the title of the first episode, wasn't it? Mad Max.
I
Yeah,
think so. You can take
I
one,
thought
Andy.
she fit in with the kids pretty well, actually. I mean, it was sort of a tough puzzle to make there for a while, just because they were resistant to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought she did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, I thought she was a lot of fun. I'm hoping we see more of her next season, that she sticks around. I think actually one of the standouts, and I didn't even think to put her on the list, was frickin' Lucas's sister, younger sister.
Yeah. I loved most of her scenes.
Everything she did was frickin' hysterical.
She just busted his balls all the time. Like, she was such a good... She wasn't even a brat, but she was just a great
Just
little
a
sister.
smart ass.
Yeah.
Like a little smart ass.
And you can tell she's probably not that way with everybody, but this is her brother. He's a couple years older than her. He's only like 13. She's going to make fun of him for still playing with toys. And she's going to make fun of him for his dumb friends. And it fits so well.
Yeah. Who else we got? Dacre Montgomery's Billy,
So,
who
I'll
going
let you
from
weigh in
someone who
first.
was
Go ahead.
who was pretty likable in Power Rangers, and then to play
Yeah.
such an asshat in this show.
He did a good job.
Yeah, that's kudos to his acting, because I think he did just the complete polar opposite from what I remember seeing him early in the year in Power Rangers to this.
Yeah.
I thought he did a very good job.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say he felt to me though like the one who most didn't quite have an overall place.
Yeah,
Great that he was very much removed from pretty much everybody except his sister. He really shared very little to zero screen time with everybody else.
right. If they had removed him, we probably wouldn't have felt a big difference.
I think now I don't know if you guys watched any of this stuff, but Netflix has their Stranger Things after show.
Yeah,
I
beyond,
saw that. I
Beyond
did not
thing,
watch
yeah.
it though.
Did you guys watch any of those or no?
No.
Okay. I did finish watching all those after the season, because at that point I just wanted more Stranger Things stuff. But they have interviews with like the Duffer Brothers and talk about creative decisions on the show and stuff like that. So their reasoning for Billy was they were sure that they were going to deal with monsters and stuff like that, but they wanted some sort of human antagonist for the show.
Okay.
Season 1 was kind of Steve, and then Steve came around by the end,
Yeah.
and now Steve's kind of a good guy. So
Steve's awesome.
they needed some asshat bully high school jerk to play that role in this one, who seemed irredeemable, and that was sort of where they got Billy from.
That makes sense. That
Sorry, did you have something else to add?
I'll say when we go more specific, I would say that like the arc of his character pretty much fit that exactly.
Yeah. Last one is Callie, who opens the season in Pittsburgh.
I do not remember who this character is.
She
goes by a number.
Eleven's sister,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
quote unquote sister.
Yeah. Which I don't know how much we can or should talk about now, because I don't know how much that is a spoiler, but I mean, you're obviously opening the season with her using some sort of powers.
Yeah, did you say they shot the opening scene in Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
Well, it was set in Pittsburgh.
it was set in
as
Pittsburgh.
far
I
as
don't know if it was filmed there or not.
yeah, I don't think
It was set.
yeah,
That is right. That is right. Okay.
which has no bearing on the rest of the season.
No, not at all.
But when it opens and you're like Pittsburgh, you're like, oh shit, what's happening in Pittsburgh? And then it just goes away and they never talk about it ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, you are right. My apologies.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, can we talk generally about her, even though she doesn't really show up until later in the season?
I would say that by the end, she actually felt pretty inconsequential, but I'm hoping that it comes back around in season 3 to drive more of Eleven's arc.
Yeah, like I think she had a specific point later in the season, and I feel like maybe she's there just to set up further storylines later on.
I feel like if 11 hadn't run into her, she wouldn't have been able to do what she did.
True. Yeah,
that's my thing. I think like it felt more like a subplot, but it was just used as like a plot device to be able to do something else in the show, i.e. 11 figures out, is able to do something that she might not have otherwise been, but the fact that like all the backstory surrounding this character, her relation to 11, all that stuff, really in the end to me it felt very inconsequential because they just kind of dropped it. Like they just went away when they were done with the purpose that they served for the rest of the story. So I'm hoping there's more importance and more not that it's like the driving force with what happens going forward, but it is more substantial to the rest of like the main plot next season.
Yeah, you got to think that they're gonna bring her back for season 3, right?
Yeah,
they wouldn't just.
I would think
they wouldn't just dangle that and then take it away from us and never give it again, right?
We hope. I mean, I trust these guys enough that I think they craft good stories. So I don't think they've. So far between 2 seasons, they haven't set up much that hasn't paid off later.
Good point.
So I do trust them to have a point with her at some point. And I'm pretty sure like season 3 is confirmed. If it like I'm almost positive Netflix already said that's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming.
Well, of course they'd be idiots not to, of course.
Yeah. And I don't know. I can't remember if they ever talked about how long this series would go. Like I don't think it's going to go past 5 seasons.
It would. Yeah, it'd be difficult to do that long. I think.
I think past that long. I think even some of that Beyond Stranger Things episodes, I think the Duffers had said like they have an end in mind. It just depends how long they want to take to get there.
Okay.
So it could be 4 seasons, it could be 5 seasons. We'll see how they pad it out and what kind of stories they get to tell. But that seems to be generally what they're thinking about. Anything else generally to touch on? Otherwise, I think it's a good time to probably get to some spoilers.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So this is your spoiler warning. We're going to get to the spoiler section. If you haven't seen the 2nd season of Stranger Things, you can pause this now, come back to us after you're all caught up. Final warning for spoilers for Stranger Things Season 2.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so we are into spoiler territory. Is there anything specific you guys want to start with, or do you just want to start with, like, the first question I was going to ask is, what are some of your biggest questions after finishing Season 2?
I'd say my biggest is, can we focus next time on a main, I guess antagonist is the only word that's going to fit, but a main conflict that doesn't center around Will.
Yeah, you got to feel for that kid. He always has so much shit happen to him over the course of these first 2 seasons. Should be somebody else going through hell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get it.
11 didn't go through hell?
Well, she has her own shit, dude. But like, as out of the 4 or 5 other kids, it seems like it's all Will.
And I mean, like I say, it was an easy thread to pull from the first season to continue it in. I think it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb and be very awkward if the driving force between like the big main problem for a third time is that like some demonic interdimensional monster creature something is screwing with this kid again.
Well, I mean, at the same time, maybe he's destined to be that.
Okay, and I'll give you that. So if that were to occur and they don't really lay some obvious seeds for that in a third season, and it doesn't really pay off like till the very end, and you find out something in like the last 4 episodes of the whole series, I don't think that'd be a great way to go. But if there's something more there that they lay the foundation for in season 3, I could be okay with that.
Because I mean, he's probably the only one that's been over in the Upside Down, probably the longest out of everybody, and survived.
Right.
He's now been possessed by one of those demons from the Upside Down. So he obviously has some sort of connection to that place that no one else does. So if that big shadow monster thing tries to come back again, it seems like Will would almost be the gateway.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind something fresh.
Because I know after season 1, like, I predicted that I figured Will was going to turn into another Demogorgon. Just from him being over there, him coughing up some slugs, I was like, oh, nope, he's going to be it. He's going to be the bad guy. And that didn't happen in this one. So all my theories could end up being shit. It's completely possible. Andy, any questions that you want to try to hash out?
Oh yeah. We're gonna see. What's his face again?
Dr. Brenner.
Yep.
I was surprised he wasn't in, and I'm not counting the like hallucination that 11 has. I'm surprised he didn't actually play a role in this. Like that character was not around. I thought he was gonna be much more involved in kind of like that, like the Upside Down and the monsters are the kids' antagonist. I thought that he was going to kind of be 11's biggest problem the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, that hallucination that she has, he tells her in that thing that basically he's alive. So is that just her fears playing on her? Like from what? Because that was like 8's powers, right? Which
Yep.
she would make people hallucinate and stuff like that.
8 put that in her head, but I think
So,
8 told him what to say to her, right? Like that she creates all of that, you know? She
right.
doesn't just...
So that's what I mean. I don't know how much you can take his lines of dialogue there, like, as fact. Like, if her hallucination is saying, like, you didn't come look for me even though I might be alive, does that mean he's actually alive? Or is that 11's fear that he's alive?
I think
you see where I'm going?
I do, and maybe that's why they wrote the line that way, because maybe it's going to turn out that he is alive, but it just happened to be her fear because she both saw him as a father figure because she didn't know any better, but also he ended up being, her tormentor.
So it could be one and the same. He is alive, and it is her worst fear coming true.
Yes.
I get you. Okay. I actually think that might play out better. And if he is alive, I would assume they're saving him for something like that. Because they definitely... now might be a good time to talk about... What did you guys think about the seemingly very divisive 7th episode, where 11 goes off on her own, runs into 8, and seems to fall into the Warriors movie?
Right? That was a weird little departure.
Yeah, I kind of I was expecting them to go to a school for gifted youngsters.
And I've seen a lot of allusions, and this was something I was sort of going to bring up later, so I don't want to get too sidetracked with it, since we're sort of talking about another question I was trying to field. But there seems to be internet theories and a lot of comparisons to 11 almost playing out like Jean Grey in The Phoenix, where she is destined to go dark as this power overcomes her. Like there's apparently a lot of visually, and even something as far back as, and I can't remember what exactly it was or what, but the first episode of season 1, Will and Dustin are racing back to their houses. Dustin says, like, if you beat me, you can have one of my comics, and Will calls out an X-Men number that apparently that specific comic issue in the story could foreshadow something later with, I think, like Jean Grey and 11, if I remember correctly. So they may have been planting these seeds for a while.
That's definitely one way to go. Wouldn't be super surprising. That doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't still be cool and entertaining.
Because I just some of the lines of dialogue from what I try to remember with 11, like all like channeling her anger to make herself stronger. All that stuff I feel like is going to lead her down a path where she is going to become the antagonist.
where it's like she snaps or can't control it anymore,
Right.
or
Something like that where they have to stop her or I don't see that being like that's where the season ends, but like in one of these middle seasons before the final season, I could see something like that happening.
I could see it.
So, not to like sidetrack off of that episode, but Andy's comment about X-Men made me think of that.
Yeah. What was your guys? I don't know if you because I definitely can. Can you remember what like one particular and like any particular quote or line or joke or anything out of season 2? Like if you could pick one that's your favorite, if you recall one, what would it be? Anything that really stuck with you?
A lot of Dustin stuff I feel like comes to mind, and the first one that pops to my head is when he goes to Mike's house looking for Mike, and the dad answers the door, tries to get information from the dad. The dad tells him nothing interesting, and basically tells him, "You're worthless. You're a waste of my time," and walks away.
Yeah.
And he leans out like language, and then just goes back inside the house. That's the moment that stands out to me.
That is my second favorite. Andy, do you have one?
He keeps calling the Dart and all those fledgling Demogorgons Demodogs, and keeps
and he keeps correcting everybody.
He keeps correcting everybody. Yeah.
I think hands down, because I was on the train when I was watching the episode it's in. I almost lost my crap. It's the episode when Jonathan and Mike's sister go to see the conspiracy guy, and they're at his place, whatnot.
I know.
And then the next morning after they spoilers, they hook up, and the guy says to Jonathan, just opens a conversation with, "So Jonathan, how was the pullout?" I was not expecting them to go that. I mean, obviously, it wasn't horribly crass or crude or anything. It was actually really clever, I thought. But I did not think they would use other characters around those two to draw such attention to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. I loved that line.
Yeah.
And so
that whole story arc, though, really was very anticlimactic for me. Like, they were supposed to send all this evidence to the newspapers and stuff, but we never saw any actual end to that. They said that they sent it all away. He sent them out, and then like he shows up to watch them go out of the thing, and that's all we see from him after that. That's all we see from the media. Nothing. We don't see any end play for that.
I thought that one of the main reasons that the facility was getting shut down was because of, like, yes, the events that happened there, but it got sort of legitimized by the recording, all the copies of the recording that they had sent, and like the combination of the two is what led to the shutdown of the facility. That's what I took it as.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of with Josh. That was just cause and effect of getting that recording out there, that it did affect closing the lab and getting all those people kicked out.
I guess I just wish they would have connected those dots a little better.
Yeah, I can see that, because obviously from the events that play out with like the Demogorgon infestation, it would have made complete sense that the place shut down anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, like the causation between the news reports or the publicity and the closure wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Well, the other thing is, like, where the Demogorgon didn't really, like, I don't feel like that was public knowledge for stuff. Even all the outbreak of the Demidogs and everything in this one, like, there wasn't a lot of people that saw that kind of stuff, and the people that did, they covered that up. So it's not like, even if those things got out, and that seemed like a big fucking deal for everybody that we saw on the show, but they're not new to this stuff. The general public still has no idea what the hell's going on, which means they wouldn't call for, like, a mass closure of that facility.
Sure, I think I took it somewhat as their, like, maybe the public didn't know what had happened there. the night of all the creatures being out, but at least with, like, I'm sure there were, like, sirens going off or things happening near the compound, and just all the publicity together of, like, oh, an incident at the research lab, and like, it just, like, got too much public heat from everything combined.
Yeah, I guess they didn't really, like, even the stuff that they leaked out with the tapes, like, I guess that wasn't about, like, the Upside Down and all the crazy demon shit that comes out of there. That was just more of like, hey, we know Barb died, we know we were sort of responsible, and we covered it up.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much what sealed it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I took away.
Which, I guess all that hashtag for Justice for Barb stuff actually got tied off in this season.
Yeah, which I guess, like, that was a way to get there. Although I guess I thought, again, it's not necessarily bad. It was just that, like, the sort of public reaction to season 1, and especially Barb's character and the unanswered questions and all that. I guess I again thought that some of those loose ends would have driven some of the plot more in the second season than it did.
Yeah.
Whereas it, I don't want to say it was like an afterthought, but it was able to be tied up, but it didn't really factor into the course of events.
Okay. I feel like I kind of want to bring us back around because I feel like we started talking about this and then we got sidetracked, but looping back around to that 7th episode that seemed sort of out of place. Where did you guys fall on that? Did you like that episode? Did you not like that episode? Because the internet seemed to love or hate that episode. I didn't think there was too much in between there. Because I feel like, sort of like what we talked earlier, I think it served a purpose for 11. It was sort of the trigger that sends her back home to try to help her friends and stuff like that. But
yeah,
it
considering
also strengthens her.
Yeah,
It
it powers her up so she can take the big thing out later.
Yeah, and it also, I think it helps strengthen her resolve.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
in character. It definitely, I thought, helped build her character into a little bit more of a badass than she already was.
Yeah. I think for like, again, for me, I guess I can see the purpose of it and what it was there for. But considering the build up to the episode prior to that, and then like you get sidetracked for an hour with somewhere else that you had no intention of wanting to go, that I think is what threw me.
Okay, yeah. Now that since you characterize it that way, that makes sense to me. Yeah, it was more of like a pacing interruption than anything else.
Right. Because that was where, right before that episode, is like the hole opens up underneath the building. The army of demigod things are climbing up the walls, and you're seeing Hopper there looking at the hole, seeing all this shit come out, and you're like, oh man, shit's gonna go down. Start that next episode. Why are we in Chicago?
What is this? They're doing a heist of some kind, or
yeah.
They're doing like that was the thing. I think like in the end there was something that 11 got out of it that she was then able to take forward to reintegrate into the rest of the story, but the purpose that the rest of them collectively were serving was like you understood why, but it didn't really have anything to do with what else was going on.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the comment of pacing. I think it just felt out of place with the pace of what that was building towards. Because I agree, I think it served a purpose. It had a purpose that needed to be done for 11's character and for her arc. And you look at the flip side though. I don't even know if that episode could have been done earlier in the season or somewhere else. Like it almost seems like it had to fall there, but it just didn't. It still messed up. I don't know how I felt about viewing the episodes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just kind of like took the wind out of you when you went to the next one, and the pace just because even again the prior episode builds and builds and builds, and then you go to that one and it just dies and the pace slows down, and then we come back right after the next one or to the next one, and then it ramps back up again, and you're in the final 2 episodes, and those are the ones I had to just keep watching.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It just made me realize when like the comments earlier about how like Netflix shows, Amazon shows, Hulu original content, they're produced in a way that is supposed to just be a very long form story, but it's one story from beginning to end. It's just a very long movie.
Right.
This felt episodic.
Okay.
It's like you took an episode break. The formula through season 1 and then all the rest of season 2 was you watch the hour, and yes, they technically call it the end of the episode, and then you restart the next episode. But if it's all one long, 8-hour story, there was just this abrupt break in the 8-hour story. The end of episode 6 leaves off at a point where if it's supposed to be linear and it's just supposed to be the way that you're watching this straight through, you just stop and just go somewhere else for an hour. And then you come back, but it felt, like I said, episodic. Like if you saw something on TV,
Yeah.
And then, the next week they don't come back to that thing you left off on the week before, you'll get back to that next week. And it was just a departure from how the storylines were typically presented so far.
So I'm just thinking, as you were talking, like if I ever go back and rewatch the season at some point, I wonder how much I would lose if I just skipped that episode.
Right.
Like it ramps up at 6, you just jump to episode 8. Now granted, you don't understand why 11 decides to come back. She just kind of shows up.
True.
But I wonder if that would be a more badass entrance, even if you don't really know why she's there, character motivation wise.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I didn't think it was quite as segmented as you guys were saying.
You were still on board with it after all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it.
And that's what I mean. Like, there's certain people that really like it, and
it gave
it
us
bothers
some
others.
really key parts to her backstory. It let her semi-connect with her actual mother. Introduced someone who you could actually say might be her peer, which we've yet to meet until then. Well,
Right.
besides like the beginning of the season, but I don't know. I kind of enjoyed like the sort of like a little bit of an hour break in the other story arcs that were happening.
Yeah, I guess I see it just more as a setup, like we sort of talked about earlier, more of a setup for season 3 and less of a bearing on season 2. That's just, I guess, sort of how I take it.
Yeah, and I also thought it helped build my anticipation for episode 8.
Okay.
Because
you just
like
know she's going to come
said,
back and fuck some shit up.
you said like the dogs and stuff like that, and Hopper's like, oh fuck, and Mike's like, yeah, like the spy, and then it goes to episode 7, and then you see her in the. Would you call it the Upside Down when she goes into like the dark room and she sees just like little bits and pieces of stuff? Is that
I don't
the
know what
Upside
that's
Down?
called actually.
I know that's how
I feel like it's some sort of in between the Upside Down and the real world, but I don't know what they refer to that as.
But she sees Hopper in trouble and she sees Mike like in trouble, and then like that made my skin raise. And then like the next episode started very shortly after that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm seeing this shit now. So I mean, I thought it did a good job of because I mean. I did the same thing. Like I'm kind of watching episode 7, and I'm like, why are we watching this right now? Why are we in Chicago? Why are we doing this? But I thought it really did a good job of tying a little bow on it. And then at the end of the episode, they ripped that present open, and I was like, oh.
Fair enough. All right. So this is a question I had. I think even when we talked about season 1, and maybe we got sort of going that direction in this season with 8. But since 11 is number 11, and we've met number 8, do you think we'll see more of these kids out there in the wild?
I don't think it's going to be a thing where like you eventually collect them all. But
It's like Pokemon.
yeah, right. Well, I mean, I think part of the idea is that some of the children are probably dead or did die in the hospital.
Right. That was sort of my next question. Is I don't know if we're led to believe there's the only two that are left.
I doubt it, but I wouldn't be surprised if one or two more come about. I mean, if they now, like, I mean, it seemed to me that, like, 8 was surprised to know that another person was still alive and survived and found her. So yeah, maybe together, they think, who else is still out there, or one of them sense it, 11 is somehow able to tap into something and form connection and find, one or two others somehow, but I could see that happening.
Yeah, maybe they can make this big metal ball and have something that goes on her head, and she can see other people who have the same amount of powers that she has. I'm sorry. I keep going back to the X-Men.
She might need to go into a special isolated room to do that, though. Right. It would probably help her to focus her energies on that.
I like joking about the similarities that I keep seeing with the X-Men stuff,
And I don't think you're reading into that. Like, I think it's there on purpose.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing because I mean, like, fucking love the X-Men. So, but
what if we get that by the end? Like, season 5 is just like
gifted young
Mike in a wheelchair who lost hair.
They're backdooring a live action, like, straight out X-Men, like 90s cartoon style reboot.
All right, so off the top of your head,
Paul Reizer's head and put him in a wheelchair.
Well, this is the thing. Off the top of your head, out of the kids, which X-Men are they?
Well, I don't know if all the kids necessarily become them, but just through the introduction of various characters. So, like, I don't know
like,
if, like,
just
all your
spitballing for fun. Like, if 11 is like Jean Grey, would the other, like, Dustin, Mike, Lucas, which X-Men could they be?
Let's see.
I'm trying to think, even just personality-wise. Like, not even have powers, but just personality-wise, what X-Men would they be?
I think Dacre could maybe go for Gambit. Because you kind of want to like him, but he's kind of a dickhead, too.
That's Max's brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like him at all. I thought he was a dickhead the whole fucking time. I didn't ever want to like him.
Even the little bit of like, hey, he's been abused too, that didn't bring you around a little bit at all?
I mean, a little bit, but I mean, he still has a choice.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be like that.
I think Steve would end up being Cyclops.
Oh, you think he's the de facto leader?
Kind of, I mean, he's older, he kind of takes on this leadership role, he's okay with it. He kind of, he tries to be, especially in this season, it was so strengthened, he still tries to be the good guy. Like, the number of times the poor dude's like, all right, I'm 17 or 18, I'm about to graduate from high school, but I'll drive the 7th grader to his homecoming dance.
Yeah.
On my own, for no reason. Like, I will just drive him there and be like his big brother support.
Yeah.
And I'll take the beating from the aforementioned dickhead because he's the dickhead character and that's what's going to happen. Like he just kind of walked into that and kind of accepted that was going to happen. So yeah, I think he would fit very well as a Cyclops.
Fair enough. Yeah, I really liked Steve and Dustin together.
Right? That was a pairing I did not think would be good. I would never have thought of that on my own.
Yeah. I mean, I remember reading after season 1 with Emily that the Duffer Brothers wanted to definitely put Hopper and 11 together. So I was anticipating that duo, but I did not anticipate, like Josh just said, the Steve and Dustin thing.
And that was a good pairing too, with Hopper and 11. I really like that dynamic
was.
too.
The thing that I was disappointed with that is, like, I had such a high amount of respect for Hopper after season 1, and I felt like that he didn't do a good job of reassuring me about that for a lot of the season. I mean, he ends up coming back, but yeah, like I kind of didn't like Hopper for a lot of this, which is the same thing that happened to him last season. I didn't really care for Hopper for a lot of season 1 either.
So what kind of shook you for Hopper in this season?
This is treatment of
Like-
11.
Okay. The don't go outside, you're going to kill everybody, you may get hurt type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he did it. He lost his daughter and whatnot, but it just he kept doing it, and like you could tell that he was like, I shouldn't be, but he just kept doing it. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to get really overprotective for a child, but don't get overprotected for a child with superpowers.
Yeah,
when-
but I mean,
You don't want to piss her
But
off.
a lot of the time, though,
Go
I
ahead.
feel like he wasn't protecting her for her. He was protecting the secret because I feel of the
the
upside
mother.
the upside down and
Oh,
like
okay.
the research laboratory, the laboratory.
laboratory.
And I feel like he had some sort of whether it was written or verbal agreement with them to not divulge any information or any kind of thing like that.
Well, that was
So-
the whole thing in the end of season 1. Him and Joyce get taken. They are being questioned. And next thing you know, they're outside. They're suiting up with the radiation suits and they're going in the upside down to get Will. So what changed? And I think even at that point, once they get released and start going to the upside down, Hopper's telling, like, Joyce is questioning him and he's saying, don't worry about it. We'll worry about it later. Don't worry about it. Like, or he might even say, like, I made a deal with them or something. So it's alluded to in season 1 that he agreed to something to keep this, and I think he even says so in season 2. Like, I agreed to keep your secret. None of this was going to happen again. And that's when he starts flipping out to Paul Reiser that, like, you guys assured me this would not happen again, and here it is.
Bigger and badder than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, although I did take his protectionism much more for her. That's just how it hit me, that while he might have his daughter issues and whatever arrangement he has in place with the facility, I think he knew if they could get their hands back on her, no matter what else was going on, they would have, and he didn't want her subjected to that.
Well, you see what they try to do with Will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, it is very, it's a thing that has been done to death, right? I need to protect you from yourself. You can't control these powers. Again, Jean Grey and everything. But and that's not the only time that, kind of story has been told. But, I thought that was a very believable reason for that character to want to keep her isolated, because I don't think he knew, like, what can I possibly do with her except keep her out here and away from other people.
Yeah.
I think by the end of season 1, like, it was shown that she knows how to interact with people. She knows how to not hurt people intentionally if she doesn't want to. It's not like this thing that she literally can't stop from happening. But he even having the other kids know she's alive and that she's not in the upside down anymore, that she exists and like she's okay, just jeopardizes her safety.
Yeah.
I know it created a situation that we're used to seeing, right? And sort of her rebellion against that was not, the most surprising or original per se. It was definitely compelling. The dynamic between those two work really well.
I mean, I really just want to see Hopper dance some more. That's his little shimmy, man. He's got some moves.
See, one of my favorite things that they did was actually in like episode 3, like 2 or 3 or something, wherever it was that they were, it wasn't necessarily even like a flashback, because it was almost like a voice over, but at different times they were showing more of the backstory of like once he and her connected again in the woods and they like finally found each other, of like going to the cabin, making it habitable, cleaning it up.
Yeah.
I really liked seeing that. And I'm glad they showed it to us in that way. Like, I'm glad they didn't just do it linearly, that like, oh, from the beginning, eventually we'll show you that they run into each other and their story goes forward. I kind of like the fact that they were already together.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I was going to ask, are you maybe sort of surprised that they brought 11 back that quickly?
Yes.
Like, I kind of thought, like,
and that
because I was thinking somewhere in the middle of the season she'd finally show back up, or they'd find a way to rescue her from wherever she went.
Yeah, I thought that the fact that she was in the Upside Down itself was going to be a driving factor of the season 2 plot.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get her out? How do we make contact? How do we do a lot of these different things? And yeah, it's in like the first like 10 minutes. She's like, oh, look, there's a hole in the wall. I'm out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Which
okay.
makes a little bit more sense, I guess, for the end of season 1 when he drops off the Egos in the Dropbox.
Yeah.
It's not like she's pulling them over from the other side. She's just in a cabin, like in the woods somewhere, that's going to come out and grab them herself and go back to the cabin.
True.
And I was a little disappointed just myself. They have this whole, like, montage of them, like, setting traps and, like, early warning systems for the cabin.
That
And
never
they
need
rig
to
up,
get
like,
utilized.
they rig up the bullet that's, like, going to get by the tripwire, and you see them make the conscious effort to step over that wire, which never paid off later. Like, no one ever trips that wire, and that just kind of disappointed me.
Shouldn't they have tripped that wire when they take Will there to heat out the demon?
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So they would warn them.
I was expecting either them to warn them about the tripwire or to see the tripwire get set off because of them taking Will there.
That's true, too. I guess at that point in the season, because it was like 4 episodes ago or 5 episodes ago, they just expect you to forget about that.
Yeah, and the other thing that I was confused about is we knew that 11 and Hopper sort of quasi knew Morse code because they both had those like little cheat sheets and stuff. But how did Will know Morse code? Did they ever allude to Will knowing Morse code before he started tapping on the chair?
I mean, I guess I just assumed it was something that those kids have used since they have their walkie-talkies, that I just assumed maybe they've used Morse code before.
Okay.
I guess that's my rationale in my head.
I mean, you're forced to assume that, right?
Yeah, because it's never explicitly spelled out, so I
Right.
guess they just let you infer that somewhere. So I don't have any other better theories as to where they could have learned that or why. I mean, considering how much like they love the AV Club radio and their walkie-talkies, I'm just assuming that Morse code has to do with more of that type of communication.
How awesome was it that they eventually go on to tell Bob's little backstory that he created the AV Club?
Yeah.
That was so awesome. You know, I was talking to a couple of guys at work who like Stranger Things as well. They're like, man, I couldn't stand Bob. He just thought that he was out of place. And I was like, I fucking love Bob. Bob was awesome.
The best.
And as awkward as he was, you know, you could tell he still had the family
Bob's
in
the
his
brain,
heart,
man.
in his heart, you know, like as dorky and like I'm a vampire, blah blah, you know, like
he was stereotypical 80s dad.
He had the best intentions with them, you know.
Yes.
And he ended up being so badass, especially like to his end. Which keep running, just keep running.
Yeah. And that was the thing, like I like that he was able to be brave, but he didn't necessarily have to be heroic per se. Like the turn that his character took at the end, it wasn't like, oh, now we're going to show you what a total cool guy he is, and he's going to go screw these demidogs up, and it's going to be amazing. Like, no, like he had to summon nerve and courage and say, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to do my best. And in the end, they got him. But
how awful,
you know,
was
like
that,
if they didn't turn him into something that he was not the rest of the time, you know, it didn't like try to spin the character just to make him go out in a blaze of glory. You know, it would have felt so weird.
How horrible was that though? He finally sees Joyce again, and he's all happy, and then you're like, "No, dude, just run!"
Yep.
And then they get him. You're like, "Fuck, Bob, fuck! What about Bob?"
Yeah, I was sad because by that point I had come around to his character. I'm like, oh yeah, he fits in really well. Like again, like he found his place. This is where he belongs. This is the purpose he serves. And then you're like, okay, season 3 is gonna be great. Ah, damn it.
So I have two things I want to touch on. First, I'll start with Bob since we're talking about Bob. And I feel like I might have read this somewhere online, or one of my friends, friend of a friend type thing might have mentioned this to me, but the whole scene in the car with Bob and Will, when Will is confessing to Bob about his nightmare with this smoke monster demon thing.
Yep.
And Bob tells him the story about the clown and how the clown's chasing him, and one day he just stopped and stood up for himself, and the clown went away. Did anyone get the sense at that point, or think about it, that Bob could be a bad guy and wanted Will to get captured and possessed by the smoke monster? Like Bob was almost like the spy?
Did I think it at that point, or do I think it after the season's over?
At that point. Did that roll through anybody's mind when you're watching that scene?
No.
Because that seemed to be a sticking point with some people, was like they were hung up on Bob because at that point they thought Bob was a bad guy.
Oh.
And it wasn't until like he finally sacrificed himself that it's like, nope, he was never bad. He's a really good guy. I feel terrible now.
Nah, that never occurred to me.
Never occurred to me. It just...
I mean, I guess it's possible to think certain things because he's new to the group this time around.
Right.
He's very closely tied up with the family. I guess I could see why they might have those potential suspicions, but it just did not hit me that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's something I've seen online that didn't make sense to me, or I didn't really see it that way when I watched it. But I guess looking back, I could see that, and I just didn't know if that crossed anybody else's mind when you're watching it.
The only thing I thought about that car and the story about the clown and like just go away is that, you know, he's kind of trying to inherit a family, so he's going from he's trying to go from not a dad to a dad in a very short amount of time. So right. I think he's just trying to offer what he thinks is very good fatherly advice at that point.
Yeah, and most of the time when you're talking to someone like that, you are just referring to a dream and not an actual smoke monster that could possess you.
Right. At that point, Bob had no idea that Upside Down and any of that, all the other jazz was anything.
He's in way over his head and he doesn't realize it, so yeah. Given the context, he knew exactly. He tried to help out. Yeah. The other thing I want to point out, and the more that we talked about it, demidogs are what the Ghostbusters are called, right? The demidogs in Ghostbusters, for Gozer, isn't that what they are? Isn't that what they're referred to?
Are they ever called by name? If they are, it's probably by Venkman.
Yeah, I can't remember if they actually say that. Like that's what they call them in the movie, but I think that's what they're referred to. And just thinking of the overtly Ghostbusters references in that one episode, one of the earlier episodes, the fact that now Dustin is insisting that these things are called demigods or can't say it, demi-dogs. It just now just for whatever reason clicked in my head that could be another Ghostbuster reference that they've sprinkled in over the course of the show.
Yeah, it would have fit because they, in the timeline of the movie, they would have just seen Ghostbusters. Like I think it came out the year that season 2 is set.
Yeah, it came out in 1984, and that was when season 2 is set.
Yeah, so it was like that summer.
So
that would make sense.
I just googled dogs from Ghostbusters, and the Ghostbusters Wikia is saying they're called terror dogs.
Well, that's not as clever.
That is not as clever.
That's pretty generic, actually.
Oh, no, wait. Now, so I try to Google it, too, and then I get demidogs for Ghostbusters Wiki.
Someone probably
What the hell?
updated the Ghostbusters Wiki after Stranger Things came out.
Oh, this is from, the Extreme Ghostbusters.
Oh, well.
So that's not the movies. This is from the weird cartoon that they did.
Now that I'm looking at a bunch of the other type of things, I'm seeing both terror dogs and demon dogs.
All right, so I'm half right.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Did anyone hear the one theory? I don't see any way that it was true, but maybe they were going for like another little Easter egg. That going back to Bob's clown story, if the movie takes place in 84 and you de-age Bob about 27 years, depending on how old he's supposed to be in the story he's telling, that would put him roughly at the point in history in the like late 50s where the first chapter of Stephen King's It takes place.
I mean, I would assume if he's having nightmares about a clown, I just assumed it was it.
But like I guess they were almost, maybe just like a little fun Easter egg. Like maybe he was one of the kids from the original timeline of it, and obviously like none of the kids in that story have the fate as adults that he did, because there is a second half to it where they are adults.
Yeah.
But maybe he, the kind of just like a fun sprinkle where like, hey, maybe he was in the town where, that took place or something. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but so I saw that on the internet, and the timeline does kind of place it right around the time in the late 50s where the first part of that is set in the book. I just thought that was fun.
Did you catch the Goonies reference that he gets?
Yeah, oh, what was it? I did, and now I can't remember what it was.
Where they lay out like all the map that Will is drawing, and they draw an X at one point, or come to an X, and he goes, "Oh, what's down there? Buried treasure?"
Yes. That was awesome.
Yeah, they're giving him his own little Easter eggs.
That was almost as good in Sarah and I are catching up on the second half of season 3 of The Flash. So the stuff that aired this past spring, and the Gorilla City episode. There's like a one-line throwaway joke where Tom Felton makes a like city of apes or planet of apes joke,
right.
And he was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. So yeah, it was almost as good.
I love those callbacks like that. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Do we think, I know this was a theory rolling around on the internet too, the slug that we see Will cough up at the end of season 1, you think that's Dart?
Yes, but then I'm kind of confused as to why it took that thing so long to grow to the small, like it doesn't advance all that much in like almost a year.
Yeah. He just needed nougat. That was the missing ingredient.
Yeah, apparently. Which, did anybody pick up on the fact that at the end, when all the other demidogs are racing back to the core to like try to stop 11 from closing the breach, and then, once she does and they all fall down dead, that Dart is still in the tunnel, and like he dies by like close by the Three Musketeers. Like he didn't go.
Yeah. Yeah, he sat there and ate all his candy bars.
I guess so. Or maybe like in the end he was like, well, yeah, I had my candy and I had my friend, whatever, else is going on. I'm sure everyone else got it. It's not that important.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to touch on.
The only other thing that I would want to talk about is closing the gate.
Okay.
How awesome was that scene? With Hopper and the shotgun and the dogs trying to jump off the walls and get them in the elevator.
Yeah.
And then
for
11,
the climax of the season, I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, and then 11 trying to close it, and eventually she uses both hands and she levitates off of the ground. Holy fuck, I think every hair on my head and my body were just like, bing! Like, this is awesome.
And I like they sold it well, because even Hopper looks surprised. He looks concerned.
Yeah.
He doesn't just take, even after everything he's seen in this real world that he otherwise knew, like all this fantastical stuff, even he doesn't consider that normal. He doesn't consider that acceptable. Like, that is still exceptional to him. He sold it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about would be the snowball.
Oh, the dance.
Yeah. Or the ice
Oh.
ball. What did they call it?
I didn't even
I-
remember the fact that you remembered even that. You win.
Poor Dustin, like none of the girls would want to dance with him and stuff. I thought that was really awesome of Mike's sister to sort of do the whole what would you call it? Wedding singer, I guess, where he kind of gets Drew Barrymore to dance with with the chubby kid who can't get another girl dancing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, she's like, oh, well, I'm the upperclassman. I'm here volunteering for the younger kids for their cute little homecoming.
Yeah, and you're kind of led to believe that she's sort of like the hot girl
Yeah.
of her class, too, So the fact that, this nerdy, like, underclassman is dancing with this, like, hot girl senior, like, probably just put him up at least a few pegs.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, the idea, I mean, think back to when, we were 12, 13, 14, how it was so rare that, at least in my school, that anybody knew a large percentage of people who were several grades ahead of them.
Right.
So even if, Nancy just looks like moderately normal, even if she's not exuding an aura of like, I'm the popular hot girl my age, like all the younger girls obviously like clue in like, oh my god, like Dustin got her, good lord. But I did admire how, I know it kind of broke down afterward, you can only take so much, but how undeterred he was at first, where he was just like, all right, you guys gonna be dancing? That's fine. Watch me do my thing.
He had that Farrah Fawcett hair.
Oh, I love that crap.
I was gonna say, I love that he took Steve's advice and got that stuff.
And
so slicked back.
I also thought it was cool that one of the girls actually liked Zombie Boy, and
yeah,
Will got a little bit of action there. It was pretty cool. I really liked Lucas and Max hooking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The little kids are growing up.
And of course, like the main event there would definitely be Mike and 11.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if everybody sticks together in season 3. Especially if it like jumps forward a couple years. We'll see how those relationships are.
I think it'll be weird, especially given her history, if they try to continue the relationship of Mike and 11 as if like they're just your everyday regular boyfriend girlfriend. And I just like 11's character and her history, without there being like a certain level of awkwardness about it. Like you would have to skew it in a way. Because if they just tried to normalize it and make 11 too normal, I don't think it would fit.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Of course, I don't know what the solution is, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of just interactions like that, I was dying in the scene where Dacre is going around everywhere looking for Max that night, and he ends up at Mike's house with his mom getting out of the tub with the robe. That was
not to mention
hilarious.
she's reading that trashy novel in the tub.
Yeah.
And then when she gets out, and the trashy novel guy is at her front doorstep.
Pretty much. And she just like 100% just had that total cougar aura about her. Where she's like, well, I have these teenage kids, but I'm probably realistically like only in like my late 30s. So it's like, I thought it was so funny. And he played that so well.
Yeah. Seductively eating some cookies.
Oh yeah. that dude has really good timing. He knows how to stretch a moment. He knows how to deliver a line the way it needs to be in certain scenes. I'm not sure, like, other than Power Rangers, what he kind of has on his docket coming up the next couple years, but I'll be interested to see what else he does.
Yeah.
As much as I thought that his character was not necessarily necessary, I did think he did a pretty good job of playing the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my surprise, is like by the end, like with Steve, you said in season 1, Steve had an arc. Max's brother didn't really have an arc.
No.
Yeah, I don't think
He was just
I think
there.
they probably want to bring him back. Like, I'm sure they might use him again.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't have another Steve, so they still have to
No.
make him an asshole so that he's there.
It was weird to me that all of these new characters all sort of came across the occult. I don't know what else to call it. Or the supernatural stuff that was going on in Hawkins.
Okay.
But
Okay.
him. He
Yeah.
never actually crossed anything supernatural.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's something they can play with in season 3, like how
that's-
how that realization could affect
That's
him.
kind of how I'm wondering if they're going to play it out. I wonder if he'll be another Steve character where he actually ends up being, like, cool with Max and helping her out and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
but at the same time, I feel like you can't keep introducing assholes and then having them turn around and be good guys by the end of the season like that. Then you set the bar for yourself. I feel like they got to change it up at some point.
Yeah, we still have that Dr. Fucker running around.
That's true.
Dr. Fucker.
Well, I hope that's what his name tag says.
Yeah, change it right now.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fucker.
It's not that, like, you have to say fucker real menacing. Dr. Fucker.
Fucker.
Well, also could consider what you mentioned earlier, that if the next season is going to be a time jump to some degree, Steve, at least I believe, is a senior in high school, and I took it that he probably was too. Max's
So
brother.
they'll be college.
Well, I don't know if he's going to college, but
I mean, you're kind of led to believe that they're both, the top athletes in the school.
kind of got that impression, right?
Yeah. So,
Well, I guess the impression I'm getting is Steve might be trying to get into college based on merit and smarts and grades and stuff like that, where Billy is just like, yeah, I'm the best at everything. I can see him getting in with sports.
right.
Yeah. But if that's going to be the dynamic, how easy is it going to be to utilize those characters then? And how realistic would it be to conveniently have them going to college in is there a college in the town somewhere nearby? Are they commuting? It might not be as easy to utilize them.
Yeah. Might be cameos and guest spots.
Yeah.
All right, sort of just to wrap up, let's just go over maybe a couple of your favorite moments that you haven't talked about from season 2. Because I think I have a couple we haven't touched on that I just want to at least rapid fire mention.
I didn't remember it when Josh asked about the joke until I mentioned the ferret faucet hair. But when Dustin and Steve are talking on the train tracks, and Steve does actually let him know how he gets his awesome hair, I thought that made me laugh a lot.
He's very adamant with how many puffs it takes, or
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Something
not
like that.
tell
It's
anybody.
got to be damp. Damp hair,
And
not
Dustin-
wet,
yeah.
damp.
And Dustin's like, Farrah Fawcett? And he's like, I swear to God, man.
Which, I love that he's also threatening a kid who's 4 or 5 grades below him as if
Right.
there would be any major impact on his reputation.
I was actually looking at my little list of what I wrote down of favorite moments, and actually most of them we touched on, except the one that we didn't, which I just thought was a really cool moment, and it's sort of like Andy said, it's one of those moments where it just makes the hair stand up, where Joyce gets her hands on the video camera that they took trick-or-treating,
Okay.
and she pauses it and sees the outline of the smoke monster
Yeah.
on the tape. Shit like that. That's really creative storytelling wise and stuff like that. And that brought me back to the whole the lighting of the Christmas lights in season 1,
Mhm.
that type of moment for me.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
It seems like so far every season that household has had shit all over it.
Yeah.
Whether it's drawings of tunnels or Christmas tree lights.
Yeah, they need a new base of operations. The
The
Buyer household. Because they even have one of those. I think 11 throws one of those demi-dog things through the window, doesn't she?
Yep.
Yeah, she
So
does.
the front of that house gets fucked up again.
Yeah, that's how she re-enters when she comes back from Chicago.
That's right. Yeah. And that's thinking of it that way, if you cut out episode 7 and she just shows up at that point by throwing one of those things through the window, that's a pretty badass way to come in. Any other favorite moments for you guys? Anything we haven't touched on?
No, in general, I'd say I just really enjoyed a lot of the the one sequence where, like, right after Steve and Dustin do walk the train tracks, laying out, the meat breadcrumbs, and then they end up back at the junkyard. The whole scene of them, like, fortifying the bus, and Steve giving the two of them crap. He's like, "What are you guys doing over here? The only one helping me here is that random girl." He's like, he hasn't been introduced to her. He doesn't know why she's there, who she is, but, like, she's doing more work than the two of them pissing and moaning about their friendship and the girl and everything else.
Yeah.
Speaking of those two, do you guys anticipate more, I wouldn't say animosity, but difficulties between Dustin, Max, and Lucas? As far as, like, oh, we both like Max.
No,
Honestly,
I feel like
I
they
hope
put
not.
that to bed.
Yeah.
I feel like they wrapped it up pretty good in the season, that I don't know if that's going to be an issue going forward. The only way I can see that being an issue is if Max changes her mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think Lucas and Dustin are cool with the way things happen, but if Max suddenly is like, I don't like Lucas anymore, I like Dustin, then I could see that being an issue with the two of them. But I feel like that would take away from her character if suddenly she has a change of heart for no reason. Well, I guess if they gave her a reason, I guess we'll see. But I'm hoping they don't do that. I think there's better ways to use that dynamic.
Yeah, I don't know if... I mean, I guess even speaking more in general, I don't know if... They would have to be careful and write it very carefully what types of things could come between the friends, the types of things that could really get under each other's skin. Because I'll be honest, here's something that always bothered me about a lot of stories that people write where supernatural or fantastical things happen. The characters typically go through the first iteration, so you get through book 1 or season 1 or the first movie, and then in the next chapter, the third chapter, the fourth, however far it goes, after all this crap that they've seen that is not normal, like, the rest of the world does not accept these things. They don't know what happens. And to anybody else, this would be, it just so far out there and it like apocalyptic and all, like, this just crazy stuff. But somehow the characters are still bothered by everyday stuff.
Yeah.
That really bothers me. Like, I don't know. It feels like you could absolutely write characters that recognize that some of the typical things that people who aren't going through this kind of stuff, like, it wouldn't be that important to them anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the fact that they do go through that kind of stuff kind of humanizes them a little bit more, though.
I think true, but I think I've seen it so often that I would first of all, I would just like to see it happen not once. Just not happen once so that I could maybe see the contrast and how that makes me feel about the characters and how it hits me. But at least for me, I don't think anything takes away from their humanization or their humanity. Because the way that I'm viewing their humanity is only through my own experiences and my own prism. Because I haven't been through the Upside Down and the Demogorgons and all of that. But they have. And so their definition of what regular humanity and humanization is going to be different. Like the paradigm should have shifted. And sometimes when it seems like it hasn't, I'm like, how it gets difficult for me to believe sometimes that what seems like more petty crap can still be that important to characters who have experienced such dramatic things.
I guess I see both sides. Like, I see what you're saying, but I also see what Andy's saying, where even, like, after all that shit, all anybody wants to do is get back to a quote-unquote normal life. And when you get back there, I feel like that's when you run into all those normal, shitty problems that everybody has all the time. So it just... I don't know if you could return to normal and still be... I don't know, like, used to it, or... Like, I understand what you're saying, to where, you know, this should be small potatoes compared to what they have experienced before, and should maybe give them a different perspective on that kind of stuff. But if everybody just kind of wants to get back to the way their life was after that, it's not like anybody wants to live in terror the whole time. So when you finally get back to what life was, then you start running into stupid problems the same as before.
Fair enough.
Anything else? Because I think that's pretty much where I'm at. I think we covered pretty well. I think we all agree that season 1 and 2 are fairly similar as far as goodness quality.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they're both very, very much marathonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was trying to think like which season I like better, and I don't think I can really choose. I think they're both. It's a pretty close tie between the two of them, so I'm not even going to try to pick.
Now that's a marathon I would run.
And on that note,
I think we should start making apparel or t-shirts or something, maybe mugs branded with Bri Guy and his Super Friends, and that could be one of our best known taglines appearing on some of the merch. That's a marathon I could run. ... from my couch.
So is the from my couch part on the back of the shirt or just on the lower of the front?
Either or.
Fair enough.
I think. Well, yeah.
We'll just plaster Andy's face on the front, giving the thumbs up.
I think you do. That's a marathon I could run on the front. ... So then you're like, oh, what's on the back? How does this finish? From my couch.
And the front of the shirt is like him looking like he's ready to run, like real motivated. And then when you look at the back, he's just like passed out on the couch.
It's like that shot they always sort of show where like the person is sitting like in their couch. They're like showing the shot from like the side back view of the TV to the person on their couch. Apparently, like everyone watches TV in the pitch black darkness, and you just have the illumination of the TV light on the person as they're on the couch, like holding the remote up.
Yeah. I can see that. It's a very good visual. I got it.
All right, calling all artist friends, viewer, listeners of the show. We need your help. You got to go to work.
We will charge you a whole nothing. So there's a lot of that going around.
There's t-shirt and paraphernalia profits to be split.
Yeah. All right, so I think it's where we're gonna wrap up Stranger Things season 2. I think we have a vague plan, I think, going forward, at least for the next 2 episodes, so we'll hopefully be able to stick to this. I think we talked about it maybe 2 weeks ago. We were sort of teasing it. Next week, we're going to try to get to our top 10 most anticipated movies of 2018. That we'll record it probably right before Star Wars, so it'll probably be uploaded the weekend that The Last Jedi comes out. I don't know about Josh and Andy, but I plan on seeing Star Wars opening night, so I'll be out of the way with that and probably see it a couple more times over the weekend. But I figure we'll at least give the weekend for people to see it. So after our top 10 most anticipated for next year, the next episode after that will probably be for The Last Jedi, which I'm expecting should be a good one. And after that, I think that would put us probably the week between Christmas and New Year's, so we'll probably take a break off that. I'm not planning anything that week as of right now, unless something crazy happens or something's really newsworthy to talk about. But between the holidays, I feel like there's just too much going on that it's just easier to just take a break and chill.
Maybe you will need 2 for The Last Jedi.
Well, that's the other thing, too, is I'm trying to save space for the most anticipated and The Last Jedi, because I expect those episodes to be long. So Star Wars episodes are usually, we never have a shortage of things to talk about on a Star Wars episode, so I expect that one to be large. That's what she said. For that should, give you a general sense of what's coming. We'll hopefully be able to stick to that. If any changes happen, I will update on the Facebook page. But I guess until then, if you enjoyed the show, please stop by iTunes. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to share, subscribe, favorite our show wherever you decide to listen. As always, you can find us on Facebook. Search Bry Guy and Super Friends, or go to facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. And you can send us comments, questions, topic suggestions, all that stuff there. You can email us, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com, or at BGSuperFriends on Twitter. Any of that will work, and we accept all submissions. On behalf of Andy, Josh, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Arg?
He brings it back.